In this video, we will be assembling the Loadstar II rocket. This is a two-stage rocket, however you can still use this as a guide to build other rocket kits since the instructions are mostly similar. First, remove all the pieces from the laser cut sheet of balsa wood. Next, sand or file down the rough edges on the pieces. You can also round off the leading and trailing edges of the fins. Cut out the guide for the fins and the tab for the parachute. Set those aside for later. Take the fin guide and wrap it around the first stage body tube. Using the guide, mark the fin attachment lines onto the body tube. Remove the guide and use a straight edge to extend the line down. Cut out the centering rings for the inner tube. Take the inner tube and mark the positions for the centering ring. The distance varies for different rockets, but it is usually around 15 to 20 millimeters from either sides. Glue the centering rings onto the inner tube. Take the engine block and glue it inside of the inner tube to complete the engine mount assembly. If you are building a multi-stage rocket, take the largest set of fins provided and glue them onto the first stage using the guides you drew previously. Using hot glue is recommended since it is easier for it to dry. Check for alignment after installing the fins. Glue in the engine mount assembly into the body tube. Make sure the engine block faces up. The engine block will prevent the rocket motor from pushing itself into the rocket. Mark the center of the coupler. Apply glue to one half of it. Insert the coupler into the top of the first stage halfway. I accidentally pushed mine in too far. The first stage is now complete. Next, grab the next stage of the rocket. In this case, it is the final stage. Wrap the fin guide around the outer tube and mark the lines for where the fin should be attached. Extend the lines down using a straight edge. Build the engine mount assembly for the stage of the rocket. Glue the centering rings on and the engine block into the inner tube. Grab the outer tube and glue the fins on. using the guides drawn on previously. Glue in the engine mount assembly. Make sure the engine block faces up. Grab the straw-shaped piece. That is the launch lug. Depending on your rocket kit, you might need to cut the launch lug in half. Glue the launch lug onto the launch lug mount. Then glue the launch lug assembly onto the rocket. Make sure they are aligned vertically. Take the shock cord and the other piece of paper cut from earlier. Glue one end of the shock cord onto the smallest section of the tab. Fold it over and glue the shock cord in place. Fold it in half and glue it in place. Now take the tab and glue it into the top of the final stage of the rocket. Make sure you don't glue it too close to the top, otherwise the nose cone cannot fit in. Around 35 millimeters away from the top should be good. If you have a regular nose cone, you can skip the step of making the fairing. Separate the top and bottom halves of the fairing nose cone. Slide both sides of the nose cone onto the tube for the fairing. No glue is required. If it is too loose, put some tape onto the mating surfaces to make it thicker. If it is too tight, sand down the mating surface to make it looser. If you need to sand it, only sand the mating surfaces on the nose cone halves. Now it is time to install the parachute. Unfold the parachute and untangle the lines. Tie the end of the lines to the bottom of the nose cone. If there is no attachment point, you can glue it on with hot glue. Just make sure you leave a loop on the end to tie the shock cord. Tie the end of the shock cord onto the bottom of the nose cone. Now fold the parachute following the instructions for your rocket. Pack everything in and the rocket is done. Just not flight worthy yet. If you are going to launch it, make sure you put some wadding into the tube before packing the parachute. The wadding will prevent the parachute from getting burnt from the ejection charge.